Everyone expected him to be king. The army was ready. The people loved him. Half of Congress was already whispering his name. In all of history, no man had ever stood so close to a throne with that much legitimacy and power. It seemed inevitable. Then, on a chilly September morning in 1796, George Washington sat down at his desk, picked up his pen, and did the most dangerous thing in history. He gave the power back. But no one really knew what was going on behind that decision, and once you find out, you'll never look at leadership the same way again. The United States wasn't even 20 years old yet. The Constitution was brand new. States didn't trust each other. There was a massive divide between the North and the South. Over in Europe, France and Britain were at war, turning the Atlantic into a bloodbath, and both sides were trying to drag the young US into the mess. Back home, political parties were starting to form, and it wasn't pretty. You had Thomas Jefferson on one side and Alexander Hamilton on the other. Both were trying to pull Washington into their corner. Both failed. Why? Because Washington trusted them both, but he was also done with both of them. He'd been president for 8 years. For 8 years, he woke up every single day with the weight of an entire country on his shoulders. All he wanted was to go back to his farm at Mount Vernon, smell the fresh dirt, and enjoy the quiet by the river. He was 64. He was exhausted. But nobody wanted to let him go. Here's the thing you have to understand. Nobody had to tell Washington to be king. They didn't need to. Back then, when a powerful leader won a war, what did they do? They took the throne. It wasn't just a rule. It was just how the world worked. Cromwell did it in England. Napoleon was about to do it in France. Caesar did it in Rome. Power usually just leads to more power. A lot of Americans actually wanted him to stay. A strong king felt safer than the unknown. Washington's name was a better guarantee than any piece of paper or constitution. In 1782, a colonel named Louis Nicola wrote to him directly, saying the whole republic thing wasn't working and that the country needed a king and that Washington was the guy for the job. Washington's reply was short and to the point. I can't even tell you how much this idea shocks and pains me. If there's anything that could hurt this country more after we finally got peace, it's the plan you're suggesting. He said no to the crown. But that was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. This is where things got scary. The Revolutionary War was winding down, but Washington's army was broke, angry, and dangerous. They hadn't been paid in months. Congress had broken its promises. These soldiers had bled for their country, and now they had no money and no future. Officers started whispering, if Washington gives the word, we've got his back. We'll march on Congress, take over, and set things right. It wasn't a full-blown coup yet, but the sparks were there. Washington knew he had to act. He called his officers together in Newburgh, New York. He walked into the room, and you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was thinking, is this it? Is he taking over? Washington started talking. He was calm but firm. He told them he understood their anger, but that an armed revolt would destroy everything they fought for. He asked for their patience. Then he pulled a letter out of his pocket to read. He struggled with it for a second, then reached for his glasses, something his men had never seen him wear. He looked at them and said quietly, Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have grown not only grey, but almost blind in the service of my country. The room went silent. Some of those hardened soldiers actually started crying. The Reliust Likset. Here's the wildest part. Washington truly, deeply did not want power. It wasn't an act. His biggest dream was just to go home to Mount Vernon. that big White House in Virginia by the Potomac, riding his horse in the morning mist, working the fields, sitting with his wife, Martha, in the evening and just living a normal life. He held onto that dream all through the war. He put it on hold for years as president. When his second term started, which he didn't even want, he was basically talked into it. That dream felt even further away. By 1796, he'd had enough. But the people around him wouldn't stop. Hamilton told him the country would fall apart if he left. Jefferson, for different reasons, said the same. People were writing him letters, begging him to stay. Washington sat at his desk, reading those letters, torn between two voices. One said, "You've done your job. You deserve a life." The other said, "Not yet. They aren't safe yet." This is the part that really matters. Washington wasn't just quitting. He was building a blueprint. His farewell address wasn't just a goodbye. It was a message to future generations. He gave warnings that are still 100% relevant today. Watch out for extreme political parties, he said. Don't get too dependent on foreign powers. Stay true to the Constitution. And model no one person knows should of the nation. I bet his hand was shaking when he wrote that, because he was talking about himself. He didn't even give a speech. He just published it in the newspaper. When America woke up, their president was already on his way out. When King George III of England heard the news, he asked his advisor, "Is Washington really stepping down?" The advisor said yes. The king was quiet for a moment, then said, "If he does that, he will be the greatest man in the world. Think about that." A king measured greatness not by who wore the crown, but by who was brave enough to turn it down. Europe was stunned. This just didn't happen. A powerful general, loved by his people, just giving it all back, voluntarily, with a smile. It wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the ultimate power move. So, you have to ask yourself, what would you have done? You've given 8 years of your life. The people love you. The army is loyal. You could stay, and no one could stop you. You could rule for another decade, maybe 2. But there's a voice inside saying, this isn't right. Washington listened to that voice, and that one decision became the foundation of American democracy. Every president after him lived by the example he set: 2 terms, then you leave. That wasn't in the Constitution yet. It was just a tradition Washington started. And that tradition held up for 150 years just because of him. George Washington died in 1799 at Mount Vernon. By the river, at home, he got to live his last few years exactly how he wanted. History calls him the first president, but his real legacy was something else. He wasn't the man who wanted power. He was the man who gave it back. And who knows how many leaders today read that story and wish they had that kind of strength. Washington had it, and then he walked away. Washington's story doesn't end here. In our next video, we're uncovering a secret about him that's never been told. If you don't want to miss it, subscribe right now. Don't forget to like these videos. Only keep going because of your support, and drop a comment below which part of this story hits you the hardest.